In this video, you're going to learn how to set up the grid on your paper for your pixel painting. This is going to be just like our practice piece. It's going to be proportional and really easy to use. So you'll need your paper, a 12-inch ruler, so that's just our normal everyday ruler, a pencil, and then a yardstick. These are 36 inches, pretty long, and we really only have 6 of these for our whole class, so we're going to have to share. As you look at a ruler, just to remind you how this is set up, one side is in inches and one side is in centimeters. The side with the longer spaces will be the inches, and that's what we're going to use. An inch is divided into multiple sections. So what we want to pay attention to is the ½ inch. So that line that falls right in between the start of the inch and then the 1. So you'll see on the yardstick how before the number 1 there's a middle point, and that's the ½ inch. So to make our paper proportional, we're going to be working in ½ inches. So you'll need to pay close attention to which dot that is, or which line that is, and that'll help you be really successful. On our clear ruler, it's a little bit more evident because it sits a little bit longer than the other ones, and then on the yardstick, it's in a little bit different location. So just make sure you're paying attention to where this stuff is, and you will be good to go. Make sure you have all your supplies, and then you are ready to get started. The first thing that you need to know is that your final artwork is going to be 12 inches by 16 inches. So this paper is 12 inches by 16 inches. Then your pixelated image that you're referencing is 24 pixels by 32 pixels. You'll notice that this is half, so directly half of what you're going to do. You will need to set up your grid to match the pixels of your reference image, not the inches of your final artwork. So how we're going to do that is we'll start at the top. And I'm going to make sure that this is nice and even on all the sides. And I'm going to measure it. So my paper should be just exactly 12 inches. So make sure as you're doing it, see this corner right here, how it sticks over a little bit. Your ruler has a little bit of extra space on it for you to notice and pay attention to that. Just a reminder, you'll always need to make sure that you are using that ½ point of your inch, so make sure you are using that ½ inch. It's the line that falls directly in between each inch. And make sure you're not using the centimeter side. That's going to be really important because then your grids aren't going to line up. So just make sure that you're paying attention to those details before you put any marks down on your paper. So as we work on this, you're going to have to double check it, make sure that things look right. As we go to mark our ½ inches, again, line that start of the first inch up on your side. There will be a space there on the inch. Then I'm going to put a little light, remember, light until it's right, a light mark at each ½ inch. I'm going to continue doing this across my whole paper, and this is going to set it up to where my lines will be spaced evenly, just like they were on our practice grids. So with this, you're basically making your own graph paper, but at any size that we want to. So this is going to be really helpful for us as we're trying to lay in our pixels and essentially plot our points. So you'll see how light my dots are. I'm going to do this 3 times. So I'm going to make 3 rows of these evenly spaced dots because what happens when you have 3 is it lets you line up your lines of your grid that you're going to set up. It helps you line those up really straight. If you were to just use 2 lines of those dots or 2 rows of those dots of the ½ inch marks, that leaves a lot of room for your ruler to get crooked, for your lines not to be straight. It just doesn't give you as solid of a point or an anchor, so something to kind of hold on to as you're drawing those lines of your grid. As you're doing these marks, it's important to really pay attention. Check yourself each time. Make sure that you are actually putting those points at the 1/2 inch marks. So you should have one at every 1/2 inch and then one at every inch mark. This is going to be really important, and it's going to save you a lot of frustration as you work through this stuff. I would, before you even do your next row, I would go back and double check it on your ruler and just make sure that you are being very exact and precise. Once I have all of my points laid in, it is time to draw our first lines of our grid. So you're going to do a line at every 1/2 inch. So you're going to have to turn your paper the other way and use your ruler to draw these lines. So this is where you can either use your yardstick or just your ruler that you've been using. Just make sure that you're keeping those lines nice and straight. So you will use these 1/2 inch lines that you've drawn to create a nice straight line across your paper. So I said earlier to do at least 3 sections of those dots. On your longer ones, I might do 4. It's going to be up to you. That'll just help you really focus and make sure that everything is even and nice and straight. So just make sure that you're paying attention to how that stuff lays on the paper. You'll see my first line here and how I used my ruler and I just slid it over and lined it up with my first line that I drew. Now you're going to do this from top to bottom. So on each side of your paper from the top to the bottom, it's going to take some time, but I promise it will be worth it as you're working through your painting. So now that you have your first side of your 1/2 inch lines drawn, what you've done here is you've made the 24. So whenever you go and make this grid, it'll be the 24 by 32. And so you should have 24 evenly spaced sections now. Now you're going to go back and do the same process, but in the opposite direction. So you will do the wider side, so the longer side, the 32 pixel side, which should be your 16-inch side, and you're going to go mark each 1/2 inch here as well. Now this is where you need to be very, very, very careful because it can get somewhat confusing with the marks that you've already made on your first lines. So what I would do is I would make sure to put my dots where I'm doing my dots at every 1/2 inch. I would make sure that I'm putting those in the spaces between the lines. So I'm clear as to which dots are for these 1/2 inches and this part of the grid and which ones are the ones that I've already drawn my lines in. Take your time. You might need to watch this video once or twice just to make sure that you're good to go. Again, this is going to be worth it. It will be a little tedious, which means it's just kind of paying attention to those small details and really taking your time. So again, I'm going to do these sections of these 1/2 inch marks probably 3 to 4 times. On this shorter side, you could do 3 easily and get away with it. On that longer side, that first process that we did, you might want to do 4. If you need help with any of this, be sure to ask me or ask your neighbor, and we will be glad to help you. Once you have all your 1/2 inch marks on this part, on this side of your paper, you're ready now to finish out your grid. So just like we did before, you're going to take your ruler and line it up to the sides or to those dots that you just drew. Make sure that they're nice and even. And as you can see right here, you can already see that I've started my first little section of those pixels. So once you draw that line, you're going to see that grid starting to come to life. If they aren't like perfect little squares, that's okay. Just do your best and try to make sure that they are even. And if you've placed your lines in the correct spot, you should be good to go. So again, This is going to take a little bit of time, so stay patient, take a break if you need to, but this is really going to help you see where you need to put each of those colors and each of those pixels. Just again, like I said before, sometimes whenever you're doing it like this, it can get a little confusing which dot is the right one and all that stuff. So that was another reason why it was very important to pay attention to where you made those 1/2 inch marks at first. You're going to continue doing these lines all the way across until you have finished connecting each of those sections of the 1/2 inch dots that you've made. As you work through this, it's going to be very important for you to check yourself as you do it. Do not get to the end and then realize that you don't have the correct amount of squares or the correct amount of pixels for your grid. Check it as you go, because if you mess up and if you don't check your work as you do it, you're going to get to the end and not have enough. If that does happen, figure out where you went wrong and then turn your paper over and try it again. So in the end, you should have a total of 24 boxes by 32 boxes. And this will be set up just like our reference images. So this is going to be awesome, and it's going to help you know exactly where to put your colors and things like that. As you finish this, check with me, and then you'll get approval to start painting. I will give you some helpful tips and tricks for your painting a little bit later, so that you can see what is the best approach for your stuff and what's the best approach for your paintings. Have fun with this, enjoy it, use this skill in drawing or in your next projects.